Yeah, well, New Jersey is interesting because it shifted so much toward Donald Trump last cycle. I mean, Kamala Harris only won the state by
Mm,
about 6 points. And so ordinarily we think of New Jersey as being a fairly solidly Democratic state. But
yeah.
there have been a couple of trends, including the last governor's race there, that was much closer than expected. So we're going to be keeping a very close eye on this race. But with regard to the primaries that are happening, the Republican side seems pretty much sewn up. Donald Trump has endorsed Jack Ciattarelli, who was the nominee 4 years ago, came remarkably close to
Hmm.
unseating Governor Phil Murphy. But the Democratic side has been sort of a chaotic brawl, like a six-way challenge between Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill, who is the front runner at this point, and there seem to be a couple of
Hmm.
other candidates who are potentially in the hunt. That would be Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop, Newark Mayor Ross Baraka, and then a couple of the other contenders, including Congressman Josh Gottheimer, have struggled to catch fire in this
Mm-hmm.
primary. That's not for lack of spending. It's already seen millions of dollars in spending, but this race right now seems to be Mikey Sherrill's to lose, although with 6 days to go, there is still a decent amount of intrigue with regard to who will come out on top.
Well, that's interesting. What are polls telling you about Mikey Sherrill? The Congresswoman joined us here on the program just a couple of weeks ago. She spoke passionately about this race. Is there any issue that could change the trajectory here as we head for the primary?
Well, the polls are saying that Mikey Sherrill is the front runner, but it's a tentative front runner, right? This is a six-way
Hmm.
race, and so we have the leader with 30 something percent of the vote. That's hardly a commanding lead, and so it won't take much in the way of a slip up or a gaffe in the last couple of days to kind of shake things up a little bit. Mikey Sherrill benefits a lot from being the only woman in a six-way field. Of course, this is a Democratic primary, so women make up the majority of voters typically, and we wouldn't expect that to be any different this time around. A lot of this is going to come down to who the candidates are all positioning themselves basically as who is the most capable of being a fighter back against Donald Trump and his administration. And so you see this in all the ads. There are
Yeah.
boxing motifs and candidates talking about who's the fighter. You got Mikey Sherrill in her military garb talking about that. Trump is looming very, very large in this gubernatorial primary because the Democratic base is
Hmm.
just so hungry for a fighter right now and somebody who can push back against the president.
Really interesting. You laid that out nicely for us. And yeah, the campaign ads, Mikey Sherrill on the jumpsuit standing in front of a helicopter. You find some parallels with that campaign and that of Congresswoman Spanberger, who's, of course, running for governor in Virginia. Another national security minded, now, well, I guess, former member here uh, with a real tie to the military community. It's hard to discount the relationship between the two. What's got your attention in Virginia as we head for that primary a couple of weeks later?
I think what's so interesting about these races is that exactly what you mentioned. Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill, both the front runners for the Democratic nomination. In Spanberger's case, she's already sewn it up. They have such similarities. They were actually roommates on Capitol Hill. They both came into the class of 2018 here, which was that blue wave. There are national security oriented women who flipped Republican held seats that cycle. And so they've been leaning into their moderate profiles a little bit. But I think the general consensus is that Spanberger has done a slightly better job, both coalescing the Democratic base. And she also seems to have done a very, very good job with regard to fundraising. And the Republican in that race, Winsome Earl Sears, who's the lieutenant governor, has struggled a little
Hmm.
bit in the fundraising department. She's also struggled to kind of match the moderate profile that Governor Glenn Youngkin has. Even though she's his, number two, she has made a couple of comments about particularly some of these federal layoffs that are happening. Virginia being a very, very important, a lot of federal workers in Northern Virginia and down in the Hampton Roads region. She has made
Yeah.
some comments about laying off the federal workers being laid off, and it's sort of just like everybody gets laid off. That's a very, very tough sell of a message, and so you already see Democrats touting that on billboards and in ads throughout the state.
But you see it as Spanberger's to lose, yeah?
I think that's the general consensus at this point. It certainly sounds like from the conversations that we've had with Republicans that New Jersey has the president's interest and a lot of the more of the attention, even though the states voted about the same in 2024.